This is Crash Course American History, and today we will be learning about the European countries and their interest in the New World.
After defeating the Aztecs, Cortez gave each of his men power by creating the encomienda system. In doing so, he made them commissioners or encomenderos. And with that power, they also had the responsibility of taking care of the land, watching over the natives, and converting them to Catholicism, and converting them to their religion. But however, that didn't work well because they abused their powers and most of the Native Americans ended up dead.
Towards the later years of the 1400s, England had an interest in America.
England's migrations to America caused the Native Americans to become very worried.
In 1497, John Cabot was the first English sailor to go across the Atlantic in search of new countries to colonize. He landed somewhere near Nova Scotia, then sailed southward. King Henry called the land that Cabot discovered Newfoundland. The colony of Roanoke was the first attempt at England settling America. In 1585, a man named Walter Raleigh sent about 100 men to settle on Roanoke. After a hard winter, the colonists wanted to return back to England. 2 years later, Raleigh made a second attempt to colonize Roanoke. A month later, Roanoke's governor, John White, headed back to England for more supplies. However, when he returned, he found that Roanoke was no longer there and declared it as a lost colony. No one knows whatever happened to that colony of Roanoke.
Time for the mystery document.
A vision upon the conceit of the Fairy Queen. Methought I saw the grave of Lorelei within the temple where the vestal flame was wont to burn, and passing by that way to see the buried dust of living fame, whose tomb fair love and fair virtue kept. All suddenly I saw the Fairy Queen, at whose approach the soul of the Petrarch wept. And from thenceforth those graces were not seen, for this queen, in whose stead oblivion laid him down on Laura's hearse. Hereat the hardest stones were seen to bleed, and groans of buried ghosts the heavens did pierce, where Homer's sprite did tremble all for grief, and cursed the access of that celestial thief. I think it's Shakespeare. Is it Shakespeare?
What? It was Sir Walter Raleigh. Now you get a brick in your face.
Now what you gonna do with it? Now what you gonna do with it? I'll put that brick in your face. Now what you gonna do with it? Now what you gonna do with it? Now what you gonna do with it?
So let's talk about Jamestown. The colony of Jamestown was shortly founded right after the war with Spain. That roughly ended around, I want to say 1604. They arrived with about 144 men. They arrived at the banks. In honor of the king, James at the time, they named the river James River. Yeah, that was a little repetition, I'm sorry. Here's when it gets interesting. Jamestown wasn't the best piece of land. It was just a bad piece of land. It had mosquitoes, very swampy, wasn't the best place to live. Surely I wouldn't pick it. There were mosquitoes swarming everywhere who had malaria, or also known as yellow fever. But that wasn't the worst problem of their problems. No one knew about the land at all. They didn't know how to get around, they didn't know how to eat, and they were very hungry.
Thomas Hooker was the leader of the congregation in Connecticut, and he founded the first river town, Hartford, Connecticut. He was not alone in the Connecticut River Valley. Trading posts have been established in the region, and two other congregations have found the town of Windsor and Wethersfield.
In 1663, King Louis XIV seized control of New France and made it a royal colony. The Mississippi River, founded and raised by French fur trader and priest. Also, he ran all the way down to the end of the Mississippi and claimed Louisiana as colony for French people. By 1760, there were already over 60,000 French settlers in the new colony. Louisiana was claimed as Louisiana because it was named that in honor of Louis XIV, King of France.
Settling Louisiana. Count Frontenac, the governor of New France, hoped to ship furs to France by the way of the Mississippi River and the Gulf of Mexico. The French built several forts, including Fort St. Louis and Fort Detroit, to ensure control of the Mississippi River. In 1721, the French captured and enslaved 1,800 slaves to work in Louisiana. Rivalry with Spain. Spain in 1565 settled the town called St. Augustine in Florida to protect their claim of the region from the French, who earlier had settled the Carolinas. New Southern colonies. Charles II awarded vast land south of the Virginia Territory to 8 of his friends and families. This land was named the Carolinas, coming from the Latin version of the name Charles. 1716, the first Spanish settlers arrived in eastern Texas to claim the land. They wanted to do this to protect that region from France, who wanted to invade it and try to take over Texas. South Carolina. The first settlers in 1670 founded the capital of Charlestown, later known as Charleston, after the name of King Charles. The first product South Carolina exported in large quantity was deerskin, because in England it was very popular for its leather. The colony also captured many slaves and exported them to the Caribbean, because over there it was very high demand for slaves. North Carolina did not have very good coastline. The beaches were surrounded by the Outer Banks, which were hard for ships to reach and trade with the Carolinas. Many North Carolinians were farmers. They grew tobacco, and they also made naval supplies such as tar, pitch, and turpentine.
The fall of New Amsterdam and the founding of New York in 1664 marked the beginning of a new wave of English colonization. For over 20 years, no new English colonies were founded due to the war between the Puritans and the English king. The English Civil War started in 1642 when the king sent troops to arrest some Puritan leaders. The Puritans formed their own army and fought back. By 1646, the Puritans defeated the English troops and captured King Charles. 2 years later, he was condemned to death. Oliver Cromwell was then seized power.
Watching his Puritans suffer, John Winthrop decided to use the company that he held a lot of stocks in, the Massachusetts Bay Company, to help the Puritans move away instead of using it as a business opportunity. Using this to help Puritans take refuge. In doing so, using his funds, he would send 11 ships with 900 Puritan settlers to the North Americas. But that's not all. At the end of the year, 17 ships with 1,000 settlers would also go to North America, where they'd go on to find cities such as Boston, and so on and so forth.
What are you studying?
I'm studying Rhode Island and the religious descent. Back
Oh.
in 1600s, yeah. You want to know a bit about it?
Yeah.
Alright, walk with me, we'll have a little talk, a little chat. There was a man, actually a minister, named Roger Williams, and he became a minister in Salem, actually. Come on, keep coming. You know, he went to Salem because separatists, they were accepted there. So, he founded the town of Providence using his beliefs.
Oh.
There's also another woman named Anne Hutchinson who didn't quite believe in the separatism ideas, and she was banished from Boston. And then that's about it for today's lesson. So I learned a little bit today about King Philip's War. What really caused the King Philip's War? Do you know?
I do not.
All started because the fur trade began to decline, which really angered some people. And then once English settlers made Native Americans follow their customs and laws, the Native Americans obviously would get pretty upset about this. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that just set a fire. And then
Wow.
finally in 1675, Plymouth Colony tried and executed 3 Native Americans for a murder, some random murder. Wampanoag warriors then attacked Swassa. And you know why it's called King Philip's War?
Why is it called King Philip's War?
Because it's named after the Wampanoag leader, Metocomet.
And that's all we have for today, folks. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.